consideration and possible action to opt out of early voting for local election, consideration and possible action to reappoint Susan G. Murphy to the Sturbridge Board of Registrars, consideration and possible action to extend the agreement for audit services with Auditor Robert E. Brown for fiscal years 24, 25, and 26, consideration and possible action to approve the revised job for food service coordinator, consideration and possible action to accept the resignation of John Cagney, old business, new business, correspondence, approval of minutes, citizens forum, executive session, and then adjourn. With that, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just a moment of silence again for the wars going on abroad. Thank you. Moving to public service announcements. Mary Lou, anything?
Nothing.
Mary Blanchard?
Just a reminder, which we already did last meeting, that we do have the parking ban, no parking overnight on the streets, and makes it much easier for DPW to plow and sand. That's all I had.
Great. And I have nothing. Moving to the Historic Commission presentation.
All right, how you doing, everyone?
Great, thank you.
Good, good.
Okay. Let me give you a little background why we're here. Starting about 2.5 years ago, we were in for a grant from the state to get some funding.
Well, yeah, I was going to have everybody, just before you get going, just if everybody could introduce themselves for
Okay,
the folks
yeah.
at home.
That's right, you're new.
Wally Hersey. Bill Barnsley.
Jean Boubon, Town Planner.
Rich Volpe.
Thanks, Rich, sorry.
And just so everyone knows, for the first time, we have 5 people on the board. Who are for the first time that anyone can remember.
It's not
So-
with us this evening, sorry. Barbara
Barbara's-
Search and Charlie Blanchard. Oh, Barbara's here?
Barbara's here.
Oh, Barbara, you want to come up? I'll move over. I'm good.
All right.
Fight over a seat.
All right, so getting back to the point, we started about 3 years ago to try to get some money from the state and then matched by the town to really do a deep dive on what we want to do going forward. Because with COVID and stuff, things kind of fell apart over the years. So the first thing I want to do is say, without Gene's help, no way we would have got it. The amount of work, and we were dealing with people wanting copies of canceled checks. Somewhat behind. But we were able to finally, it took about 2.5 years, so we finally got it. So now that it's complete, we just decided that the best way to do this are the other boards who will be working with us, know what we're looking for, what happened. Now we can go forward. Okay, so you can. Okay, the project.
There we go.
There you go. Okay, the project scope and the goals. What we did is we went to PAO, which is a consulting company, which has dealt with us before. They've done inventory before. So we said, what we'd like you to do is, let's get a study, complete study of the town, a survey of the town people, what's going on in the state and what we can do to get us up to, I guess, to at least be in competition with other towns. Because we keep looking at, history is a lot in this town, and it also brings a lot of people in this town. If we can get a percentage of what goes to OSV to hang around on that a day or two and see what we have from an economic point, it's a great deal. Plus, there's so much here to do. So we gave them that as their scope and goals. And I would guess there probably was 5 or 6 meetings we went through with them. They would come with their suggestions. We would come back and tell them, it's not what we were looking for. It was what we were looking for. So what they identified here, some of the challenges, short and long-term goals, which I'll get into a little later, volunteer shortage, which does happen, and you notice the third one was communication and coordination between departments and commissions, because there are times we'll have to deal with conservation, we're going to have to deal with planning, we're going to have to deal with demo delays and things like that, which before weren't in the right order. And then also the last one is to have a townwide inventory of properties and sites. That would be in an easy way for people to go and look at, have it all in one spot. I'll get into it later. The majority of things we have were handwritten from 1970, or 69. So if looking at historic preservation, what they brought up as issues or challenges, reuse and redevelopment of historic properties, that's an issue. Potential impacts from new projects to historical resources that are there. Storage of historical town records and historical objects. Again, they're all over. They're probably in like 3 different locations right now that we're trying to get together. Lack of local historical districts. I'll get into that later. That's something else that we can look at. And historical properties and cemeteries, which we have one of the biggest in the state right here, and creating a general awareness and enthusiasm for historical resources. So the question is, how do we get the people in town involved in this? You can go to the next one. We did a survey that was sent out, and I would say, Gene, we had a pretty good response.
We did. We had about 500 respondents, I
Response.
believe.
And the majority, you had some people who had no interest at all, and we had some people who had a lot of interest. But basically, Sturbridge residents take pride in the town's history and their value and preservation. So resources with the recent past are most in need of documentation before they're lost. I mean, everyone knows what happened with the fairgrounds. We now have a system put in that at least we would look at a demo delay, and that situation in that way it happened wouldn't happen again. So they came up with recommendations, and what I liked about this is when you look at it, they break out things between near-term projects and long-term projects, and plus, then they go into inventory. What I like about this is normally when a commission, everyone tries to do everything they can at one time, and you wind up doing nothing. It just doesn't happen that way. So with this way, with projects that are 1 to 3, and then we have projects from 3 to 5, we can keep working on it. So if the board turns over, at least we have a template of where we want to go. And the biggest thing they talked about is, inventory survey, National Registry, which we really do need to push on that on a number of items. And bylaws and regulations, that'll come as time goes on. Okay. Inventory, determine areas for future survey work. We do have inventory surveys already. What we're doing now as a board to decide what extra areas need to be put in, and then to go back what we have. When Barbara was the head, PAL did a survey for her, but that wasn't everything. So we want to add to that, to have everything on one spot. Next one. Existing documentation updates. And this is just an example of what we have currently is handwritten. So we need to get them in this format so the state won't accept any of this type of information from us anymore. So if we really want to get a spot or get the National Registry, we still have to start filling out these. So that's part of the program. This is obviously the easiest thing for us to fix. So then they said, what about education and stuff? And one of the things, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, is we're working with Old Sturbridge Village to try to get some programs that are part of the town and part of them at the same time, to get more people involved. Walking tours, historical events. I mean, this year, 2024 is the 250th anniversary of the Boston Tea Party, and we have the person, Hobbs, who was here, so we're going to have an event for that. We're also working with Old Sturbridge Village. You saw the Lafayette sign. There's also going to be statewide for his visit, which was in Sturbridge. So those are the kind of things we want to get going this year. And bylaws and regulations, and this is something that probably come down the line. There are just other ways to make local historic districts. And one of the things we found out in a survey, a lot of people were worried about if you did something like that, does that mean I can't touch my house? I can't. It's not like that. It just makes it a little bit easier for us to keep the documentation. And I think that's one of the things when we do go to that step, we'll have a forum for that. Because that came back on a lot of surveys. I don't want my house to be said that because then I can't paint it. And that's changed, especially in this town. So I guess, later on, the last piece will probably be we will come back to the board and look at some regulations we might want to put in. And I guess the last thing, and like I said before, we think there's an awful lot of people come to Sturbridge who are not spending the time here. I mean, our cemetery here is a man who knows everybody who's in it. But that cemetery alone, if you're really into that, the history we have in this town, and that's the kind of thing somebody might stay here an extra 2 or 3 days for. So what we've done here, this is our blueprint. We were just talking, we'll start having meetings now and start assigning these goals so that we can, at least where we're going. And from time to time, we'll probably come back and see you for different things.
Great. Questions from the board?
Any questions?
I have none.
Chase, Mary Lou?
I just thank you for all you do. And I had a question, and you kind of maybe hinted, I'm not sure if you do this or not, but if there's a historic house in town, is there like a little award that you give, like a plaque or anything? Or
We did it last year. Barbara, do you want to talk about it?
Yes, when the last survey that was done by Powell, actually, and the one before that was done by Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, had recommended certain houses and buildings for the National Register. It doesn't mean that they'll get on the register. That just means that they're saying these are possible buildings that might qualify. And so we took all of those and we did give them plaques.
Barbara, if you could just come be on a mic so people at home can hear you. Sorry.
Start over.
No, it's okay. Just, you can.
All right, sit down.
Okay. So we took those buildings and we gave plaques to the owners. It had the names that the surveyors gave those buildings and the year that they were built. And, we gave them to the people. I don't know how many of them are up, but that was around 20 or 22. There are many more that did not include the ones that are already in the district that are on the common. So that's something that I don't think was done at the time in the 70s when that was designated as a historic district. So there definitely is something more that we can do in that way.
nice, no, I thank you for all you do. I think it's a good idea.
20-something, right?
It was 20-some, yeah.
20-something houses that we already, so doing these new surveys, we'll wind up with more.
Oh, nice.
We'll keep that going.
They were ones that were recommended for potential National Register.
Cool.
So,
Yeah, no, that's great.
Okay.
That's
okay?
Great, thank you. Anything else?
No.
Robin, you have anything?
No, I'm good. I just want to thank them for all
All
the
right, thank
work and
you.
the effort.
Thank
No, we
you.
appreciate it. We know it's difficult, so. All right, guys, thank you so much. All right, Gene. Now we're doing the department head report from planning.
All right, so good evening. Thanks for having me.
Folks, if we can just ease up on the chatter, please. Thanks. Go ahead, Gene.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. I did provide you with a written annual report for your packets this evening. So I can just kind of skim over some highlights, but I don't really see the need to read the whole thing to you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
We were going to make you read it all out.
Provide additional. So it's been a really busy 12-month period, so our department did provide staff support for 49 meetings during this reporting period. And so our department supports a lot of boards and committees, including Planning, Zoning, Design Review Committee, Open Space Committee, Historic Commission, and now the new Affordable Housing Trust. So we've always been busy, but I have to say I don't quite remember being this busy. So we have a lot of very active boards and committees right now, as evidenced by all of the plans that we're producing and the plans that we're updating. So this was just one example, the Historic Preservation Plan. We also prepared our housing plan. And we're working with the Affordable Housing Trust, which is really exciting to get that up and going. We have a good group of people willing to devote their time to finding solutions for affordable housing in the community. In addition to that, we are starting to work to update the master plan. There were several chapters, the economic development, housing, and historic preservation, that can all be updated based on these other studies that we've just recently done. We did do a townwide survey that went out with the town charter update. It was sent to 4,237 households. Unfortunately, we didn't have great response rate. About 468 people responded, which I'm happy for those that did take the time to respond. I had hoped for a little better, but it's a busy time. It went out around the holidays, so I guess you kind of live and learn with that. The other thing that we're starting to work on through my department, and we've been involved with our land use division, is looking at short-term rentals, perhaps adopting a general bylaw. It's recently come to our attention that we do have people around some of the lakes and other places that are trying to buy up homes for the sole purpose of Airbnb. And every week, I'm fielding at least one call. Today alone, we received 2 calls with someone who wanted to buy a piece of property to put tiny homes on it for Airbnb. And then we received a call from someone who was looking at a lake property and wanted to know how many campers they could bring into Airbnb. So right now, we have no regulation. You can Airbnb your home. So our hope is that we could put a regulation in place that would limit the number of properties that you can have for Airbnb in the community, and also that there be some safety inspections from building department and fire department in place, because those can be significant issues. So we're just concerned that residential neighborhoods might get a little more than they had hoped. So you buy a beautiful piece of property on a lake, and your neighbor's renting it out 6 months out of the year or 7 months out of the year. So after review, we feel we need some language adjustments to kind of better articulate what it is that we're trying to accomplish, and perhaps do some outreach to Lake Association people and maybe just a public forum in general. So that's something that I will be working on in the coming year. And I just presented at the MMA conference, relived the tornado of 2011. Robin asked if I would participate in that, and I did, so that I think went pretty well. Other than that, I think everything's in the packet. I don't know if you have specific things you want to ask me about, or if I gave you enough to read.
Do we have questions, comment from the board?
No, a lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of work.
Awful lot of work.
Good job, Jean.
You'll be hearing soon more on this Airbnb, sooner rather than later. We're going to have to do something relatively quickly for safety reasons, if for no other reason.
Yes, and I did put an example in here from Great Barrington. So one of our issues was, how do we regulate multiple properties? And been working with Central Mass Regional Planning Commission on this, and Jane was able to find a good example in Great Barrington. So I think we can draw on some of that as we go forward to make the final adjustments on that, so.
We are one of many communities battling this, so there's no need to reinvent the wheel, and we
Right.
will look
copy
around
from-
and,
Yeah, there was a group of planners that worked together with CMRPC. It really came about because the town of West Brookfield actually was having a lot of issues around the lakes, where, people that live there were getting increasingly concerned with the amount of cars parking on the small lake roads, and, noise, and interfering with the enjoyment of their property that they pay a lot of money for and pay a lot of taxes. So we will keep working on that. And then I think our biggest project for the coming year is the open space plan, which I might not have started, and I know my coworker was leaving us, but we will be working on that in the coming year. So that's about it.
Great. Well, I think that's everything, unless anybody else.
thank
All
you,
right, thanks,
Jean.
Jean. Thank you for all your hard work.
Welcome.
Okay. We're moving on to Conservation Commission doc discussion. Do folks from the Conservation Commission want to come down?
So I sent you, last time we had broached this at all, the board asked me to get some more legal information, and we worked through Brian Winter to get a little more update on DEP's role, our current role, which is very limited as it stands now, and then the question of what more the board might want to do in that role. We also received an email today from Nelson, who would have some input on this, as the state technically owns the water, but the dock contractor would have to be permitted Nelson would have to look at the permits for that, but the work is being done on a state-owned entity, if you will. So just other things to keep in mind as we move forward, that if we were to move in any direction, that we'll have a couple of moving parts we'll have to look at.
Is there anything you guys want to discuss particularly?
Introduce
First, I'll just-
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Rebecca Dendro, Conservation Agent.
Ted Winglass, Conservation Member. Ed Goodwin, Conservation Member. I'll start it off. In front of me, I have a document that says you guys are the harbor masters.
Yes.
You got to be the furthest inland that I know, you know. And in reviewing this, this has worked. When did we do this, Mary? It was a long time ago.
Oh, I can't remember that far back.
Yeah, but it worked fine. And it's still valid, except for the fact that now with the state saying, DEP saying that because these cantilever docks don't touch the water, that they are not required.
Can you please explain what a cantilever dock is?
A cantilever dock is well, it's
Permanent structure.
Yeah.
permanent structure, which is I-beams, which are, they dig back into the property, set them, and then they pour tons and tons of cement on them to keep them in place, you know.
Engineered ratio.
What?
An engineered ratio based on the
Yeah,
length and
yeah.
width of the.
Counterweight.
Yeah, I actually have, I
Counter
got,
weights, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just for people,
Yeah.
in the, at home, really. But, okay. So I didn't
So-
mean to interrupt.
everybody, that's a good question, though. Anybody have any? So the state, DEP is saying, because they don't touch the water, then we don't have any authority over them, except that as a town, we have a 25-foot no-touch zone around the entire lake, in every case. And we have a 50-foot no-build zone and no new structure. So we have jurisdiction over the input of the dock. They can't, they have to come to us in order to be able to do it. But that's not why I'm here. What we'd like to do, since you guys are the harbor masters, is to hear from you on the current bylaws. What we did is, we passed two of them already, and we kind of used this. It was the length that we used was close, that they had requested, and we approved two of them that are going in. So what we need from you is guidance on what you think of the current bylaw and how we should proceed. That's pretty much why we're here. We have some jurisdiction, in my opinion. We have a town bylaw, and the town bylaw says that they have to come to us. So if they don't do what we want, it would seem to me that we have jurisdiction. So but how do we go from here? That's the question.
So, what's the board's response? Mary, you have thoughts?
Well, I've thought, the bylaws worked well. We've only had a few issues. The only thing we haven't really followed through is this yearly inspection. I mean, that's kind of impossible unless we get a boat and
Yeah.
take a few days going around. But I think all the other stipulations in it are reasonable.
Yeah, I do too.
Chase, Mary Lou, any?
I agree with Mary.
I agree. I think the bylaws work good. The question I have in talking about and I don't want to go back to it if it doesn't pertain to this, but if we go back to the cantilever docks, is that something that would be grandfathered in, or would we be looking to go around and actually eliminate these docks that are currently there?
No.
No, that's a different story.
I think that, so in one fell swoop, we had 5 requests to go out and look at docks. We had 5 applications.
Yeah.
One was for 1 set of length and 4 feet wide. The next one was 6 feet wide, and long. That one's 8 feet wide. Then we have applications for 2 side-by-sides.
Yeah.
So I think it's, agree with Ed that
conservation has jurisdiction over the
Ground.
over the ground,
Line,
the work
yeah.
in the
Yep.
ground. But, what does the town, what do you guys and the rest of the town want those lakes to look like over the next 10 years? I think the docks are nice. I went and looked at them. I met with the guy who's going to do all this installs. But there's really nothing that we can say, oh, they're too close, too far. We don't want to become the boat police or the aesthetics police, but we don't have any direction because the bylaws, in my opinion, don't address the cantilever dock.
Yeah. So what I would like to do is to get with, as a conservation member, get the lake people in to our meetings and discuss where we should be with this, write up a document that we're comfortable with and bring it back to you to see if you'd be comfortable with it.
Yeah, it seems.
That sounds feasible. Yes, definitely, the lake people have to be involved.
Yeah.
So whatever meeting you have, regular meeting or special meeting, it'll have to be well
Yeah.
advertised.
Yeah, and the only point I'd add to all of this conversation is that, I think somebody used the expression lake police. We do have, from a law enforcement and public safety perspective, we are the harbor master. We patrol those boats. If there's an emergency or anything creates a safety issue, that's kind of paramount to all of this, which, the conversation we're having here is secondary to it. But the reality of it is if any of this is unsafe, then we will probably be a bit more aggressive, I suspect. But we're operating boats. We have to be able to get to places safely and things like that. So, but that's neither here nor there, I don't think. I don't think that's probably very controversial.
And if I could add, the attorney is still looking at, the board certainly can comment at DEP and take positions on any of these at DEP. Within 30 days, they can file, and basically, the board can act like the public has a right to speak at things. The board has that right to speak at DEP, and the attorneys are also looking at then, if the board wanted to establish a bylaw with some authority, and it would have some limited authority, what that would be and how far that could extend to match those policies.
Yeah.
And the blunt reality of how harbors work and lakes works and egress around the lake, water is always the public. And the federal government always takes a position that it doesn't care what the state or the local government says. The state always takes the position that it doesn't care what the local government says, and then so forth and so forth. So on some level, I don't even want to get too bogged down in it because there's a certain just functional reality to all of this that I think most reasonable minds will not differ on. Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming in.
Just in summary, what we'd like to do is just what Mary said, pull together lake members and residents of the town and get their input to try and come up with it. Now, it's going to include the building inspector because this is a fixed, this isn't
structure.
docks that float out, it's fixed. It's probably going to, and then conservation, it would come back to you, you would okay it, and the only time they could get a variation is if they decided to come back to you.
Yeah.
There was an example from Lanesboro, their bylaw in there, which is very reasonable, well-written. I think that would be a good example. And if there was a bylaw in place for the permanent structures, because DEP has the jurisdiction for the property owner, permitting for that, then they would have to comply with the bylaw when they go to DEP. So it seems like a reasonable approach to get the permitting requirements met.
You don't talk to me, Becky, like
I know.
like, we all don't know what's going on here. We're not pleased. All right, guys. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you.
All right, we're on to town administrator update.
Very briefly, getting there, okay.
That make you nervous?
Yeah, really, yeah, I got the shakes, did too much caffeine.
I'm in her space.
Yeah, she's in my
Oh,
space.
that's what it is.
So, and it's that left-handed thing,
Yeah,
Jamie. Just a couple things, on January 23rd, Terry Masterson brought in a group called Discover Central Massachusetts, thank you. Thank you. And Discover Central Mass does a lot of marketing of this whole area and does it they do a lot of market study analysis of where our tourists are coming from, where visitors are coming from, and they actually have a marketing base that goes out to Philadelphia, TF Green Airport, different options to get people in. They're trying to get our local businesses to join, almost like a chamber might join and have their advertising spread. But they're also talking to us to see that if we wanted to do a little bit of funding to sort of mix some of our advertising buys and get a better bang for our buck. I then separately had coffee with the head of it, and I think she's got some pretty interesting ideas. So just to give you an update, just a little bit more on the marketing front. So I want to thank Terry for bringing them in, and then we may go from there to see if there's a little bit more that we might want to do to broaden that outreach outside of just this area and maybe Rhode Island, and see if we can broaden a bit. And to the point that the Historic District just made, the history here alone is something to think about for people to come in beyond the things that people normally think about. Funding, we are monitoring the municipal empowerment bill. People may hear about this. As you may know, the governor has done some trimming. We lost about 50% on our earmark grant. We don't know what that means for the unrestricted government aid, the UGA money. But what the governor has done is, she calls it a municipal empowerment bill, but basically what it says is we can add taxes in different areas to make up for that. Some of it is on the restaurant hotel tax, which they're saying we can tweak those numbers up a little bit and get more money back on that. We have to think about what that does for economic development and small business, offset by whatever revenue we might or might not lose. The other area, just to give the public a heads up that they should be aware, is a potential for motor vehicle excise tax up to 5%. That would impact a lot of people. I think a lot of it's going to depend on your town. If you don't have any restaurants or hotels and you're losing money, you might have to look at the motor vehicle excise tax. We have a little bit of advantage if we have to go any of these routes and take it on a local level. We could at least sort of spread the pain a little bit, share the misery. But I just want you all to be aware that this may be coming, and it may be something we have to look at very seriously.
Yeah, we did increase the mills tax from the original.
And we may
yeah, and there was discussion, but, reasonable. I mean, you're going to pay $100 for a meal, what's another 10?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a case of we have to decide where we want to empower ourselves. We call it empowerment. I'm not sure that might be the word.
Oh, no, because we do have to be careful.
We do.
Businesses too.
Exactly. And we have different sized restaurants. I mean, what's the difference for a coffee shop versus a large upscale restaurant?
Right.
And how does that impact them? So I just want to put it on your radar as we move forward on budgeting and thinking about these things over the next year and watching just what happens. I mean, the state may turn around and recover a bit. She's just anticipating some shortfalls. That may change, and if that does, then hopefully everything settles back. So this is more like an enabling type legislation, but just that needs to be on your radar. Just some organizational activity. I try to stay active with STAM, the Small Town Administrators Group, and I just recently joined their bylaw committee, just FYI. Don't matter as much. And Library Legislative Breakfast, I want to thank Becky Plimpton for inviting me up to the Library Legislative Breakfast on Friday morning up at the Worcester Public Library. And again, a little bit of the conversation was ensuring that the state continues to fund our public libraries, as that's important and certainly a pride of this town. So. And that is pretty much it for me, though I am going to take a little bit of, I'm going to jump a little, and we have an item coming up that I want to give a special thanks to Becky. It's been a pleasure to work with Becky, and before we move on, you guys all take your turns to say anything. As someone coming new to the town, she's provided me an invaluable amount of education on conservation in this town, the application of conservation regulation here. It's a very proactive conservation town, and so it's been a real educational experience working with Becky, and she will leave a tremendous legacy here.
Right. No, she's always been fantastic, giving the board more than enough information and communicating with us. She will sorely be missed.
Great.
Thank you. And then very quickly, I just want to thank Robin Shabbatz. We got the Mott grant, the Disability State Grant, $31,000 to update our ADA plan. So this moves forward really nicely with our ADA commission that we've just established. We have a new ADA commissioner who's a volunteer for us. And so I want to thank Robin. She wrote that grant for us, and the Collins Center is actually doing the work.
Great.
So that's it.
Thanks, Robin. All right, on to that, one of Robin's last point. I'm going to action item A, consideration and possible action to accept with great regret, the resignation letter of Becky Gendro as conservation agent. Does anybody else on board want to comment?
Just let you know, Becky, how good of a job you've done, and you've been a pleasure to work with, and I wish you all the best luck in the future. Thank you.
Hope you have free time so we can call.
Yeah, unfortunately, now that means there's boards to get on.
We'll hunt her down. We can hunt her down.
So with that, do I have a motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the letter of resignation from Rebecca Gendro with regret.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor? All those opposed?
Yeah, can we vote? Do we have a vote on this?
All right, thanks a lot. All right, so with that, we're moving on to, what's up?
No, I didn't oppose it.
Oh, I did
Oh, you
oppose
did,
it.
yeah,
I
you
did
did raise
technically.
his hand, yeah.
Anyways.
He officially raised his hand.
So consideration on moving to action item B, consideration and possible action to appoint Megan Boucher as the assistant treasurer collector at the hourly rate of $28.26, effective February 6, 2024.
This is just a restructure of workloads within the department. There's no change in staff.
We haven't lost any.
We have not lost anyone. No.
Okay. All right, then, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Megan Bouchard as the Assistant Treasurer Collector at the hourly rate of $28.26, effective February 6, 2024.
Second?
Okay, second, all those in favor? Ayes have it. All right, consideration and possible action to opt out of early voting for local election. Lynn, want to come down?
Good evening. Noisy here.
Have you jewelry?
Good evening. So this is something that's just required through the state every year. We have to opt out of early voting for local elections. You know, we do offer absentee voting in person throughout, whenever, for the local elections, and also vote by mail. We'll be, issuing ballots through the mail too for people. So we're just opting out for the restricted hours and then the weekend hours.
Any questions from the board? Do I have a motion?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we opt out of early voting for local elections.
Do I have a
Second it.
All right, thank you. All those in favor? Great. All right, moving on to action item D, which I also was one of yours, Lynn.
Yes.
Consideration and possible action to reappoint Susan G. Murphy to the Sturbridge Board of Registrars.
Yes, so Susan's been a great asset toward the Board of Registrars. We do look to them for their help and advisement for issues with voting materials and also with anybody that has provisional ballots. We look to them if there's any kind of questionable, and Susan's been a great asset to the Board of Registrars.
Yeah, she's been on how long now?
She's been on it for a few years, this would be her third term, I want to say.
Yeah, and it came up before that actually, isn't the Board of Registrar a Board of Selectmen appointment?
I bring it before you for your approval.
No, it doesn't go through
No,
TA.
no. And basically, I do reach out to the committee, both the Republican and the Democratic Town Committee, if like someone decides that they don't want to reappointed, and ask them for recommendations. So I do
Yeah,
that.
because it does have to be
Correct.
even.
Even,
Great.
yes.
All right, any other comments? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we reappoint Susan Murphy to the Sturbridge Board of Registrars.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
All those in favor? Guys have it.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you very much. Have a nice
How
evening.
were all the nomination papers taken out?
Everything but school committee. We still have one more for the Tantascwa School Committee. But we do have, all the boards and committees have been taken out.
Good.
They have not all come back,
Yeah, but-
and that's another story, because
Yeah.
sometimes people will take them out, but not necessarily bring them back.
Well, a reminder to the people at home want to get involved.
Get
There's
those papers
several
back to us,
committees.
yep. And we're working on the early voting mail right now and the absentee, so those should be going out this week for absentees and hopefully next week for the early vote by mail. And we're looking at about 1,200 at this point, just for the early vote by mail.
It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, moving on to action item E. Consideration and possible action to extend the agreement for audit services with auditor Robert E. Brown for fiscal years 24, 25, and 26.
This came as a recommendation from Barbara Barry. They've done work for us for several years. The price increase, I think, is minimal, but reasonable. And I certainly recommend that we continue. They produce what it is that we need to look at our numbers and do it well, so.
I mean, I have the same question I've asked before. Is it good to have the same person forever, or should we go out and search and maybe see if we could get a better deal? Or
I think fine, I think it's better in the sense that they're familiar with the town. They do things, they understand our needs, they understand our town, they understand the nature of our finances. I think if we had concerns with how it was coming back, if we had discrepancies with them, but things have gone smoothly, and not to say that they don't question or criticize, they certainly do, and we need, that's what you want. But I think that right now, it's one of those if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of situations. I think it works well. They have a good rapport, they're communicative, they're responsive to us, they work quickly and quietly. So I would recommend it for that reason. If I thought there were reasons or concerns.
no, I just always wondered because it's.
Yeah. And like I said, it's not that we don't want them to question and be critical, and they have. But it's, their knowledge of the town and what to be concerned about, what to look for, what not to look for, where to worry. I think that comes with a little bit of history, as opposed to having someone new come in and have to relearn it.
Learn everything. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Nope.
Do we have a motion?
Mary Lou?
Oh, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
No, I'll make the motion.
Her turn.
I make a motion to extend the agreement for audit services with Auditor Robert E. Brown for fiscal years 2024, 2025, and 2026.
For a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Mary Lou and Chase.
Great.
Motion and second.
The ayes have it. Moving on to action item F, consideration and possible action to approve the revised job for food service coordinator with the Council on Aging.
This went through the Personnel Committee. This was something Leslie requested just to adjust the role because with the new senior center and how things are going to be designed just a bit differently. We're still providing all the services that we did. It just readjusts the role accordingly to what we'll be doing and how we'll be doing it.
Right, and there was just some word change.
Yeah, it was very minor.
Yeah. All right, anything else from the board? All right, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion then to approve the recommendation of the Personnel Committee for the Senior Center Food Coordinator.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Great, all those in favor? Great, yeah, I have it. All right, consideration and possible action to accept the resignation of John Calcagni from the Sturbridge Police Department effective January 18th, 2024, with regret and thanks.
Is it only me, or does it seem like there's a lot of new police officers that are there for like 3, 6, 9 months, and then they're gone?
So I'm glad you brought this up because I was going to, after you voted, bring up a request for people who are interested in becoming police officers and firefighters to please apply. We lose people to larger communities. Unfortunately, that happens. Everybody I speak with, every resignation letter I get, it's not the town, it's not our department, we just can't compete with the bigger towns on salaries and things like that. And people, a lot of times young police officers want more sort of activity, excitement or whatever. I think we have enough. It's not like we're lacking. But a lot want larger communities. The problem is it gets more challenging the less you have, the more overtime. Some people love that, some people don't love that. And so, Chief Dessert mentioned this at a meeting, and Chief Grasso addressed it as well with fire. But we're seeing nationwide, particularly police nationwide, people just are not signing up. So after you voted, I was going to say, please, to the public who may be watching, please look at becoming a first responder. We have 2 good departments. Please apply. We're just looking for really good people in both departments.
I know we get,
Looking.
oh, sorry. You done?
I'm done.
I know we get their letter of resignation, but we don't have any exit interviews, do we?
The chief typically talks to them when they leave. And I can get you information specifically. Sometimes, I mean, with it being personnel or personnel related, it's a little harder. They may or may not want to say where they're going right away. Our most recent one who left, his wife got a great job in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And they were moving. So I can, again, they're young couples a lot of
That's
times.
understandable.
So-
But this one is, he was in Southbridge before,
Yeah. Yep.
so.
And sometimes when we make a lateral move, like, a lot of times we'll take a lateral because we don't have to pay for all the training. So it looks good on paper, but then that's not always the best, is getting somebody young in who sort of has a tie to us. It's a double-edged sword. This, we lose less money, frankly, to be, not to discredit certainly his service, but we lose less money when it's someone who came in as a lateral move. Where we lose the money is on the training. And there's, the chief has mentioned to me, and then we're probably gonna have to look at with fire, do we wanna do what some other communities are doing, which is signing bonuses? And we may have to consider it. My problem is, how do you pick and choose which departments to do that for? We do that for first responders, but I don't get applicants for other positions either. But I do think with the critical nature of first responders, the concern about forced overtime, all of those things that come into play, and the fact that these guys can't be exhausted when they are doing their jobs, do we need to consider a signing bonus that's spaced out over a few years, and they have to stay so long to get it? That's my concern on this. I don't want to go through this and sign someone and they leave. So you space it out, they may not start getting it until year 2, and then they get $1,000 a year for 2 or 3 years, or whatever that might be that we talk about. But I think we are going to have to consider that for both units.
It's an issue for many people, but, all right, anything, do we already vote on that? I'm sorry.
No, we
Yeah,
didn't.
do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
that-
Oh, go ahead, your turn.
That we accept the resignation from full-time police officer Cal Cagney.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? The ayes have it. Okay, moving to old business. Mary Lou, any old business?
No.
Chase?
No.
Okay.
I take it we're not having the retreat this year.
Doesn't appear to be the case. Yeah, we have to talk about that.
Well, we haven't really talked about, the only thing I do ask is that you do have to do a review.
Oh, yeah, that was my
Yeah, that's what it's, yeah.
next one.
So I had given you the update on what I had done up from the last set of goals. I mean, we can establish goals anytime, new ones for next year, but I kind of gave you the update of where I was at, I think a couple months back. And so for the budget, you do actually have to review me.
Oh, yeah, no.
So,
I didn't want to jump in with that.
go ahead, jump in with it. I'm
We
okay.
do, and we do. I had asked last time for another copy of.
I will get that
goals.
to you, I apologize,
Yeah.
yep.
So we're probably tracking towards March at this point. Is that too late?
No, Barbara put a placeholder in. So.
Okay, so, maybe the first meeting in March, we should, consider for the review. Can you get us updated? So
Yep,
everybody-
oh, absolutely, I get that to you this week. It totally went off my radar.
And then,
I'm sure it hasn't changed.
the other part on the retreat, what did the board thought about that?
Well, that's usually where we brought our goals,
Yeah.
and we discussed it there. And then, in your goals, we melded them. And then when we came back here, we voted in public to accept the ones we,
I'm fine either way. If you do it that way traditionally, that's fine. If you want to just do it in a meeting and present them, that's fine, and I'm happy to share it publicly. Whatever works for the board, I'm fine
I
with.
don't know how the rest of the board feels.
Yeah, I'm fairly agnostic. What do you guys think?
I enjoy a retreat. I think it's a good team-building exercise. I think we all get to know each other, and we
There's
can
that
talk
aspect
openly
too.
and about goals that we feel are reasonable and not reasonable, and I'd be for it in March.
I've never participated in one, so I'm not sure.
Well, it's good, we get to talk openly, even though it's open meeting.
Oh, it is an open meeting?
Nobody ever comes. No, we don't have it here.
Yeah, it's at the public house. We have food.
But it does, I agree totally with Chase.
Well, let's,
Michelle, just get some dates that,
Yeah.
Saturday typically, right? Or do you
Right.
want to do Friday afternoon, Saturday, or you?
Saturday.
Saturday for work
Yeah.
schedules.
Oh, I thought this was
Plus
like
you
a
people
3-day
still
thing.
work
Oh,
Friday.
no, just a Saturday.
No,
We have
no,
breakfast.
afternoon.
that's right.
No, we're Friday morning.
It's
Don't
Monday
skip it.
that's
Monday's
changed.
afternoon, yeah.
Oh, I thought we were gonna get like a 3-day hiatus in.
We're not
We're not there yet.
She wants to go to the Berkshires for a couple of days.
Yeah, somewhere warm.
You can start your tan.
We will be within less than a mile of this location. All right, great. So you guys are going to follow up
Sure.
on scheduling that. Great. All right. Yeah, good. What else, Mary?
Budget meeting with the finance committee.
Yep.
Well,
We're still
no,
working on the budget.
Yeah, no, I
Yes.
know, but we,
Yeah, we set a date for you guys to have a joint meeting. That's
Right.
what we did last year, right?
Yeah,
So
Saturday
that'll be in
mornings.
March.
Saturday mornings usually,
No, we did it in an evening last year.
we did.
Yeah, we did an evening meeting.
Hey, the memory's not what it
Because we just did one, we didn't do, in the past it had been a Saturday, and then there were a series of meetings. We just did the joint one on a regular night. I think it was
'cause
either a
it's-
Thursday or a Monday, but
Yeah, because it was always Saturday, and we would have different
last year, yeah.
departments.
No, and last year what we did was one collective meeting with everybody here and a chance for everybody to ask. So I assume that's what we would just do again.
Yeah, no, whatever, but we,
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so please just follow up.
Yep.
FinCom on that.
okay, that's it.
Just, I guess this is sort of old business. Mary Lou and I went and toured the water and sewer facilities this weekend and sort of saw some of the different structural issues, got a little bit more of a, I guess I would say, concrete or tangible sort of perspective on what some of the projects were, and it was very helpful. I think that I don't want to speak for Mary Lou, but the water building was shocking, and it really needs some attention. It is,
It does.
yeah, it's unsafe.
It should have been,
Well,
I'll keep my word.
so if I can update, and that is, they've been trying to get prices for an emergency, basically trailer, like the school department has, since last fall. We've been trying to get, but the accessibility is the problem. But we are trying to at least get them out of there temporarily until we can then figure out on a larger scale what to do, because it's a mess.
They
So
need
the
to come out of
electrical
there.
and-
I
Yeah,
mean-
it's,
It's
Yeah.
not safe to work in that building, it really isn't.
and beyond the people, I worry about the SCADA system as well, which monitors our water,
know.
so.
It's an equipment perspective. So that was all. I just wanted to note that. So with that, new business, Mary, anything?
Nothing new.
Nothing new, thank you.
Nothing new.
Okay. We don't think we have any minutes, do we?
No.
And then the citizens forum. Anybody? They left. All right. I think we're going to executive session. I think Mary is not here. Chase, would you want to read the executive session notice?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not in the executive session packet, is it? Is it in our open?
No, it's the last on the
You can just
agenda.
leave the agenda,
Right here.
Chase.
Thank you.
Just read that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Executive session per MGL C30A, Section 21, to discuss a reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than professional competence of an individual, or discuss the discipline or dismissal of, or complaints or charges against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual.
Okay. And are we going to adjourn in open session?
So,
It's up to you.
Do you guys want to re-adjourn? No, so we won't adjourn. So, Mary Lou, how do you?
Yeah,
What's it?
Well, that's the motion,
Yeah, so you.
so I'll second it.
do you want to discuss privately before
Well,
the
let's.
representation comes in, or?
Well, we can do a vote and then.
Right.
And then do that. So, all right, Mary Lou, how do you vote?
In favor?
Please.
In favor?
Yes.
Yes, myself too. So, okay. We're now in closed session. Can we make sure that the
Yep.
recording's off?